Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to our webinar with the leader of Somerset Council, Bill Revans. Really delighted to have Bill with us today to discuss the new authority's work and the priorities. And only a few weeks after it was formed through the bringing together of the 4 districts in Somerset and the former county council as well. So yeah, busy time, Bill. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Bill is a lifelong Somerset resident and has served as a councillor at town, district and county level for around 20 years. So very much of the place and knows local authority in all its forms, and most recently has led the council through this change during what has been, I think we're all aware, it has been a majorly challenging time. So thanks, Bill, for taking the time to join us, and we hope this will be a useful and interesting session for everyone. I'll just introduce myself briefly. I'm Ben Lowndes. I'm a director at Distinctive Communications. We're a Somerset business, very proud to sort of work with clients in the area, including Nuclear Southwest. We've worked with the Gravity Project, we've worked with districts and the county as well in the past. Yeah, we're very interested in the place and proud to be part of it. And as you're here today, it's because you'll have an interest in Somerset too. It's a great place. It's home to 570,000 people and around 24,000 businesses. It has one of the or the biggest civil engineering project at Hinkley Point C, which is absolutely massive. World's biggest cultural festival at Glastonbury. It's leading the way in helping the UK to meet its clean growth ambitions, and these are things that really help to put us on the map. But it has its challenges too, and I'm sure we'll sort of come to some of these around inequality, access to opportunity, that those of us on the call, it's easy to take them for granted. And there are demographic challenges as well. We are getting older as a county, but I know that there's lots of thinking around how to address this. And for me, this points to a question which I think the plan touches on, which is around the sort of place we want Somerset to be in the next 20, 30 years and beyond. And the council and Bill and councillors and officers have a really important role to play in answering that question. So great to have the opportunity to hear perspective on this. I'll just explain before handing over to Bill the approach to the session. We've done these before, so hopefully you'll know the drill, but we'll start with an update from Bill. We'll have a discussion and then we'll sort of open up to some questions from you. Please do get those in early to us. You can do that using the question tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. And we'll also put some polls up during the discussion as well, so please look out for those. And yeah, without further ado, we'll make a start. Bill, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you for the very kind invitation to come and chat this morning. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. I really appreciate the opportunity. Really looking forward to the questions. I think perhaps just a little bit of introduction of myself first. As I'm Councillor Bill Revans, I'm leader. And for the last 6 weeks, I've been leader of Somerset Council, and before that, leader of Somerset County Council. I've been a Sedgemoor District Councillor and a North Petherton Town Councillor, and that's going back about 20 years. When I first got my arm twisted to become a town councillor in my own community of North Petherton. My background is I've lived in the county all my life. My parents have grandparents, etc. Back to ancestors that were at the Battle of Sedgemoor and came to a sticky end there because they were on the losing side. I personally was a secondary school teacher. I taught in schools in Bridgewater, Taunton, Weston-super-Mare, Wellington. In my career, always taught in schools in areas that were less advantaged, because that's my absolute passion, was working with young people who perhaps didn't have the opportunities that I had growing up, and I really wanted to be able to see them thrive and flourish in our own communities. I did that until 2013. I was a year head, taught secondary history, was on the aspiring head teachers program, looking forward to with the aim of being a head teacher of one of our secondary schools in Somerset, and that was my goal. And then on the 13th of February 2013, my life took a unexpected turn because my wife at the time, Karen, had a hemorrhagic stroke, which left her debilitated, and I needed to stop teaching and become her carer and look after my 3 teenage children as well. So life went in a very unexpected direction for me, and that was really useful experience. It taught me what it was like to be a carer, and the importance of looking after our young carers as well, because all 3 of my children became young carers at the same time, working through education at the same time as looking after their mum. Sadly, my wife also had breast cancer, and as a consequence of the stroke, and she passed away 2 days before I was elected to Somerset County Council. I decided, do you know what? I'll do something different with my life. I don't want to be that grumpy old teacher whose life's going nowhere, with the leather elbow patches and so on. Let's give this a go, and if this gig doesn't work out, I'll find something else to do with my life. So I've ended up almost by accident as becoming the leader of Somerset Council, but that's not without a sense of massive love for the county that I call my home, and I'm proud to come from and proud to share with all of you. And it's only through partnership that we can make Somerset a brilliant place to live, work, raise families, or live the lives that we all want to, and be successful. The document that I think has been popped in the chat, is that right, Ben?
Yes.
Yeah, the document that's been popped into the chat perhaps reflects the ambition of Somerset Council. It is our council plan, and there are 4 themes that are in there, which I'm just going to mention now before we move on to the question session. So the first is that we're looking to create a greener and more sustainable Somerset. That's absolutely in line with the climate change agenda. We are very aware that Somerset's in the front line of climate change, with our low-lying Somerset levels and moors, with our coastline that's vulnerable to storm. We had a flooding event last week. It's not unusual in Somerset, and that's something that will increasingly happen. We need to establish that resilience with it, but we also need to play absolutely our part in tackling climate change and creating a low carbon economy, and I'll mention that in a little bit more detail later on. We need to create a more healthy and caring Somerset. We have the opportunity of working much more closely with the health service, with being one council, because the health service in Somerset has also merged. We now have one NHS for Somerset and one council for Somerset, and we have one partnership board for Somerset now, which we're calling the Somerset Board, and we're working incredibly closely with them. If we don't tackle the health and care sector in Somerset, it will be a massive challenge for us, and probably a deal-breaking one down the line.
Yeah.
What also we need to do is create a flourishing, resilient county, one that is prosperous, one that brings in lots of investment where there's opportunity, and acutely aware of the inequalities in the county. We want to make Somerset a much fairer and more ambitious place. So we're going to do that all in 4 years, with no difficulty whatsoever. Seriously, we absolutely have to work in partnership with everybody, private sector, other parts of the public sector, our town and parish councils, our communities, our voluntary groups, our housing providers. There is a whole host of people that we can only succeed our ambitions in partnership. And I would very much invite anybody on this call, please, we've got to work together to make Somerset a magnificent place to live. We love our county. Let's make it great.
Thank you very much. We had put a link to the council plan sort of up on a sort of banner while you were talking there, Bill. I mean, perhaps we can sort of put it up again, but also just sort of put a link into the chat as well, so that people have that. It's not a particularly weighty document, so and I think it touches on, it expands on the issues that Bill has sort of spoken about there. It's a really interesting time to be doing the things that you are doing, and sort of setting up a new authority. 5 or 6 weeks in, how have those first 6 weeks been?
Yeah, really good actually. It's, as you might imagine, merging 5 very different organisations into one has been an opus of a piece of work. It's involved staff from all of those organisations coming together and working collaboratively to reach solutions. We very much, when the administration came into office last May, we said right from the start, this has got to be a merger if it's going to work. If it's a takeover of one authority, or 4 authorities by one, which many people feared it would be, it will fail. Somerset's too big to be a council in the way that the county council was before. It needs to learn a lot of lessons from how the district councils operated, and the district councils can learn lessons from so it has to be a new authority. And I think we've genuinely landed that. We've got previous staff from all the previous authorities involved in that. It's not been without any hitch whatsoever. I think some invoices got paid a few days late and things like that, but we've landed it, and that's in no short part to our amazing staff who've worked incredibly hard to get there.
Thank you, and thanks for those who are making comments. If you can post any questions in the questions section, please keep them coming in. You've talked about some of the main priorities within the council plan. It's very early days, and 4 years doesn't feel like a long time to crack those points, actually. But how do you feel you've started moving towards those?
Yeah, we've so on the green and more sustainable Somerset, we've made some really good steps with trying to get our bus service to work. It had become very dysfunctional. We've had support from government in trying to achieve that with the bus service improvement plan and the reduction in bus fares. But we particularly targeted getting our transport system working between our urban areas has been the initial focus, because it is a private sector. Ultimately, if we can get our partners in the private sector to get that parts of the network working profitably, we can then extend that to our more rural communities with demand responsive transport. We've got a really excellent tree strategy we brought forward, which we're looking forward to implementing that. We're hugely ambitious about how we need to expand the tree canopy of Somerset. We've been working on decarbonisation of our buildings and our council house stock as well. In terms of making Somerset more caring, I've spoken about the unified approach with our health service colleagues, and we're working really closely and well. We survived a tricky winter in terms of hospitals, admissions in adult social care and discharge, and I've been really pleased with how that's gone. We've still work to do on that, and we need to get our local community network offer up and running to make sure that our communities can support the more vulnerable residents. We're working in partnership with our schools on an education strategy. We're very aware that our education outcomes over the last 10 years have been declining, and have declined very, very poorly. We are underperforming at every key stage from early years through to key stage 5, and we need to get our education partners on board. And just doing the first steps of getting some improvements in there. Very, very ambitious around improving our social housing offer. We're very aware that the housing market in Somerset is very tricky, and we're working with our partners as well as being a housing provider ourselves in the west of the county. Very focused on supporting our lowest paid households, low income households. We've revamped our council tax support system to make sure that the lowest income households aren't paying council tax, because there's no point taxing people who haven't got any money. And in the cost of living crisis, it's so important that we support them. And we're very excited about the economic opportunities. We continue to work closely with Hinkley Point C and EDF. We're very excited about Gravity, but we don't have an announcement yet. But every day it's like opening the paper and hoping to see something on that, because that's such an important one for Somerset. But there are the huge frustrations we've got as well, not least around the phosphates issue, which is playing, I know, is a huge concern environmentally and in terms of our housing market. And we've really got to find a solution there with government and with all partners in that.
Thank you. Lots of different things mentioned there. I had followed the education announcement that you made recently, and I was quite surprised by some of the detail in it, actually, as somebody whose kids go to school in the county. There are some questions that are coming in, so thank you for those. We'll move on to another couple, and then I will pick some of those up as we go. The plan talks about challenges, and you've spoken about some of those. I'll speak about sort of opportunities briefly. The opportunities that the plan talks about build on the communications that was happening around the time that people had a choice between whether they wanted a county council or one council or a number of councils serving the area. They're very practical and operational, important as they are. It talks about sort of streamlining processes, joining things up, making it easier to engage the authority. All of those are really important. But one opportunity that struck me as a communicator and someone who's been involved in this in the past, and really important to me as well, is a stronger voice for Somerset. So our council sort of having a stronger voice, and there's a number of ways in which that can happen. Actually, I won't mention the D word, but that does sort of come to mind. How do you see that happening in a practical sense?
Thanks for not mentioning the D word. It's devolution. If for those of you who weren't sure, so there are government offers around how councils can take on more responsibilities for their own area. That's an ongoing conversation with the government. Obviously, we've just finished a unitary process ourselves. We're very aware that our neighbours to the North Somerset Council and Bath and North East Somerset Council have just had elections, and they're forming their new administration. So we're keen to talk to them about what might be possible in terms of a devolution deal. We have been in a local enterprise partnership, the Heart of Somerset, with our neighbours Devon. Devon have a devolution deal agreed with the government, which would bring that LEP to an end. And then we got the announcement that LEPs were finishing anyway in the budget, and as well. So there's kind of a moving pattern that's going on around devolution that isn't settled at the moment. I have an excitement around the Great Southwest as well. I think there's a strong voice for the peninsula. But I'm also very aware that we need to talk to our neighbours in I've mentioned North Somerset and Baines, Wiltshire and Dorset. I think there's a West Wessex sort of model as well that we need to be aware of. Frome doesn't look to Cornwall, Frome is an integral part of Somerset, whereas at the same time Minehead may associate more with Devon than it does with Bristol. So we've just got to be very aware that that our opportunity of being in between different economic footprints gives us a foot in both camps if we want to play it that way, rather than a particular foot in one or other. So we're looking forward to engaging partners across the region and to the benefit of our residents.
Yeah, those are long-running conversations that have happened for as long as I've been in the Southwest, actually, working for a government body. And my view is the culture and the mindset is more important than the structure. But there is certainly an opportunity for Somerset to sort of step into what feels to me like a bit of a void, actually, in terms of speaking for an area that isn't represented by other structures precisely, and particularly when the LEP. When the LEPs seek to exist. So there is an opportunity there, isn't there? So there are a couple of questions sort of on this point, but I'll start with high level question before sort of digging into the detail a little bit. So this is about housing, and there are a number of people sort of on the call who are interested in this, sort of housing associations and private sector bodies as well. So, and providing the right homes in the right places is a theme. It's a cross-cutting theme that touches on your priorities around sustainability, around fairness, around well-being, around resilience, and by any measure. And I've got some of the stats up here on us on the screen. It's proving to be a struggle. So how will the council work to address this?
You're absolutely spot on. We people like declaring crises. I've noticed in local government around the environment ecology, we have a housing crisis. Absolutely. If I speak to young people about the opportunities for them to get onto the housing ladder, they are deeply worried that will ever be able to happen in Somerset. I speak to people who are in housing need, that don't for various reasons qualify to get on the waiting list of the banding that they would aspire to, and they really have no immediate prospect of getting the social housing that they need. We have 35,000 more people in Somerset than we did 10 years ago. That's down the side of Chard extra that we're accommodating. At the same time, by the way, we have 5,000 fewer young people in the 18 to 30 bracket, which is, if that happens over the next 10 years, we've got a severe problem. That's a key metric for me in terms of our demographics. The big issue that is preventing us from addressing that is around phosphates. I see a lot of finger pointing from the various sectors that are involved, be they Wessex Water, be they the farming industry, be they construction, etc. I don't see a solution coming. I see we can work for sticking plasters, that we can have offset and build a few more houses, but that isn't a long-term solution to make sure that the Somerset levels are kept free of phosphate and nitrate pollution, and at the same time ensure that we've got a clean and safe water supply, and that our houses are being built to meet the needs of the local population. And that needs a partnership approach. And I don't think there's a partnership culture that's there yet. And I want to see Somerset Council leading that partnership, but it needs all sectors in that to come to the table. So that's particularly the prospects issue. What else can we do? We are a landowner. We are reviewing our property assets, particularly in towns and communities where development would be really appropriate, to look at how we can perhaps bring former council office blocks into use for residential and other purposes as well. So there is work going on around that, and identifying any empty properties, identifying any undeveloped land that has consent already, making sure that we can bring forward those sites and that we remove any bureaucratic obstacles to bringing them forwards. Just trying to think if there's anything else that we're on the case. Oh, what I ought to just mention is about local plan as well. We need to move forwards on getting a local plan for Somerset, and that is, as anybody who's involved with been involved in local planning will know, that's an absolute key document, and not only for achieving where the houses go, it's about achieving the type of place that we want. It's a place shaping document, and we need to make sure that process is put together, that all communities are consulted, that the industry is consulted, so that we can have got a framework for delivering what Somerset needs over the next 30 years.
Yeah, Donna Cllr asked a question about the local plan, actually, which is it's sort of a nice sort of she was asking about the time scales. And I mean, I was sort of looking into this ahead of the call, and I think, unless I'm wrong, that there are some districts that have local plans in place, others were progressing them anyway. So there's a bit of work to bring that together. Do you have any update on what's likely to happen next with that?
It's an ongoing piece of work. We're obviously recruiting to those teams as we speak, so we're going through that process with putting together our tier 4, 5, 6 planning structure at the moment. And we've got work that's happened to scope out how that process might work. We're very aware of timescales in this, but we're also very aware as the market for high quality planners in being able to achieve that. We desperately need that local plan in place. I don't want to see us rush it, but I'm very aware that it delivers the housing and social outcomes that we need in Somerset as part of what I've outlined earlier. I can't give definitive timescales on this, and my apologies for that. I'm hoping that we will be able to get a roadmap towards when we can get that delivered over the coming weeks and months.
I think it will be very difficult to rush it, having been involved in a few of them myself. Yeah. Important to get it right. I think while we're on the question, we have a poll that we will just we'll share with people, and we'll come on to another couple of questions just around housing. If we're able to publish that, and the question is, what changes do we need to see to deliver the homes that Somerset needs? If we're able to do that. I don't know if that's up, is it? I can't quite see it. We'll move on anyway. I mean, I was just looking at the sort of housing affordability sort of ahead of the call as well. There's government data that was published that goes back to 1997, and in the 4 districts, so this is broken down by district rather than county, but in the 4 districts, house prices were around 3.5 times household income levels.
Yep.
And in 2007 they've gone up to sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and they've sort of hovered around that level. So it's a huge jump in the space of a generation that is at the heart of the crisis that we're facing, really. And anyone's interested in that data, we can sort of circulate the link to that. I will come into some of the questions which are sort of housing related, if I may. So just bear with me, because I think there have been some that have been raised in the comments section as well, or in the chat. Will Murphy. So Will talks about the challenge with phosphates affecting a large area around Taunton. So Will works for Sovereign Housing Association, and his question is: will the new authority continue to help to resolve this situation? Sorry, the question tab isn't working for you, Will.
Absolutely. And as I outlined earlier, we've got to see a partnership approach on this. I've sat in too many meetings where people have blamed somebody else for why it's wrong. I don't really care why it's wrong. And the reality is, I'm sure it's a balance of the different reasons. It's around that political will to build together partnerships to find solutions, and we can unlock some developments at the moment through offset, but we need a change in how farmers farm the land. Speaking to Graham Harvey, who, if you're an Archers fan, you'll know that he used to be the agricultural story editor for that. He's a journalist. He's currently working on a project around promoting sustainable agriculture in focusing on full Somerset farms, which he's pitching to broadcast media at the moment. And his ideas are really exciting about how we can reduce the impact that farming is making on the levels and moors. We've also need to be looking at construction techniques, how we can reduce runoff. We need to be talking to our partners at Wessex Water about how they can ensure that the sewage plants don't discharge at the rate that they're doing when we have overflow. There's a whole series of conversations. What concerns me in this debate is there's been a lot of heat, a lot of finger pointing, and not enough work on solutions. I'm not here to point fingers, because that's exactly what I've said people shouldn't do. But it does take political leadership to establish that culture. And yes, we in Somerset Council, and I would hope the government would take that lead to bring everyone together to do that.
Yeah, we need to stop shouting at each other and start sort of working together to work out what the solutions are. So good points there. Thank you. I'll just have another look at some of the questions, but and while I do that, so one from Hal Parsons, who works in the development industry. How much of a priority are new trains in Somerset? As a large unitary authority area, it's not well. I mean, it's not a well-connected place. And I know that as somebody who has sort of set up a company that does public transport by default. It's not easy getting around the southwest by public transport. But are there any where do sort of aspirations for new train stations at places like Wellington and Somerset sit on your agenda?
Yeah, I mean, we're not a provider of train stations as a unitary authority, but we are a key stakeholder and fully behind proposals for train stations in Wellington, which I think is the priority. And I think there's work with Devon County Council. I know Rebecca Power and Richard Ford, who are the respective MPs there, are very much working on bringing that one forwards. Langport and Somerton probably a little bit more behind that in the queue, and beyond that, possibilities of improving what the offer in the High Bridge area, and possibly looking at something in the Cllr area as well. There are possibilities, but remember, these are very long term. Set up new rail infrastructure is not a quick fix. It is strategic and it's long term. In terms of the public transport, I would say that the quicker fixes are around the bus network, and making sure that the urban network is functioning, and we have a more of a demand responsive model. I'm very interested in what's has been going on in Wecker, just to the north of us. It's not going to work perfectly on day one, but if we can get some learning from them and see what we can roll out for our residents, that would be amazing. Just a curveball I would throw in as well. I look at West Somerset and its poor connectivity and the impact that has on social mobility and its economy, and clearly it has a road infrastructure problem. There is the potential of using the former West Somerset Railway to connect there, or the Heritage Railway tracks to provide a public service. There also used to be, back in the 60s and early 70s, there used to be ferry links across to Wales from Minehead and Western St Mary. Those are gone. I appreciate the driver behind that was that the licensing laws in Wales were at the time a lot more restrictive than they were in England, and so they might have been more alcohol fueled. But the Minehead is close to Cardiff, and the economic opportunities there are significant. I'd love to see a ferry link going across the Severn again, across the Bristol Channel over to South Wales.
That would be great. And thanks for that question, Hal. Question about places. So Somerset is not alone in having been affected by changes to how people are living and working and travelling. And in many respects, those changes have been sort of accelerated over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. But how do you think the places here, so towns and villages, are responding to those changes? And is there an opportunity here for us to shape the new normal and not just respond to it?
Yeah, I mean, with any changing situation, there is opportunity and threat. That's that's sort of fundamental of so many areas of academic research, particularly around economic developments, but there's a wider piece around that. With more people working at home in our smaller towns, we're seeing an improved hospitality offer as little coffee shops open, so people have that opportunity to socialise when they're working at home. That people are seeing that opportunity. Similarly, the retail offer that we're seeing is dramatically changing in our high streets. Some are able to sustain through a different model of working in high streets. Some are going over to will transition to more residential use in the centre of towns. We will see a great change in terms of hospitality offer in the centre of towns. I look at the centre of Taunton. We all see shops that are currently empty. There is, though, a huge potential for a well-connected town that has some superb facilities to be able to take those opportunities, and I look forward to working with our partners in the private sector and also with the town parish councils and chambers to be able to deliver that. We've got to be agile in a changing market, and whatever support and role we can play, we will play that. I think it's absolutely an essential role for the council to see those changes coming and support the private sector with advice and support where it can.
Thank you. You mentioned a couple of times about partnership working being key. What's your message to people on this call who who want to work with you or may need support to bring projects forward?
Yeah, why are we all here? We're all here because fundamentally because we care about Somerset. We want to do business here. We want the best for our communities. We want the best for our schools. We want the best for our health service and so on. So we all need to be working together. Both myself and my chief executive and several members of my executive are great fans of hot fuzz. We try and avoid the phrase it's for the greater good, because we'll all parrot it as they do on the film. But that's why we're all here. We are all here to help Somerset to be an amazing place to live, to set out the ambition that we've got, and welcome anybody to the table, whether it's from the voluntary faith and sector, whether it's from private business, whether it's from other parts of the public sector. Please come to the table, because we can't do it in isolation or in silos. We have to work together. We have to collaborate, and we are much stronger together.
And Patricia Marks, who is the CEO of a county sort of enterprise agency. Hi, Patricia. She asked a question on that point, and Patricia, I hope that sort of I hope that responds to your point, really. I mean, she was asking around how the principles of collaboration and an enterprise council works in alongside the spirit of what she does.
Yes, so where we've got partnership bodies together, so we're forming the Somerset board to look at the health and care sector at the moment. So obviously all our health partners are on there, all our government partners are on there, providers are there, but also absolutely key that we've got people from the voluntary sector, community interest companies and so on around the table. And then we've got that information flow and that collaboration and teamwork working together. There is no way that Somerset Council can fix the problems without social care, for example, without cooperation of all our residents and everybody who plays in that field.
Thank you. There's just another couple of questions here, which I'll just, yeah, great questions from people as well. So thank you. Jasmine Gordon, as you say, a more sustainable Somerset is key. What would you say your number one priority is in this space?
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
I used to work with somebody who said if you have any more than 3 priorities, they're not priorities. It's a list
well,
of things.
indeed.
So this takes it a step further.
in terms of what we are doing as a council, I'm just trying to toss up whether decarbonising our own assets or getting our public transport system to work has a slightly higher impact on that agenda. It's like choosing between which is your favourite child or which is your favourite pizza or something, isn't it? I'd probably go for the public transport, because if we can't get a public transport system that works, we cannot continue a model that we burn fossil fuels to move around our county long term. So we have to get a public transport offer that works for Somerset. I'll go for that as my number one.
Okay. I can't see any other questions sort of coming in at this stage. So if there are no more, we've done sort of 45 minutes. We'll start to wrap up. I mean, thank you, Bill, for those insights and responding to those questions. Thanks for everyone joining us and taking part. I hope you found it useful. We will stay in touch with you. So, if you can stay across our newsletter, which will land in your inboxes in early June. And yeah, happy to continue the conversation with you. If anyone on here is a member of the CIPR, and I think a few of you will be, if you work in a comm space, if you're doing CPD, you can submit your time today as a custom submission, and you can get some points for that. So please email me if you'd like me to confirm that, and I'm happy to help you to claim those points. And in terms of the conversation, we've covered a few points today around resilience, around sustainability, around partnership working, low carbon. Lots of things to take away there, and a key takeaway for me, I think, is that we're all part of an important community here, and we're an active part. We're not passive bystanders. And you made a quote in the council plan which said, I can think of no better place to live and work, but we want to make it even better still, and better for the people of Somerset. I'd agree with that, and yeah, let's do what we can to make it happen. We're very happy to help, and looking forward to working with you. Thank you everyone for taking part. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again, Bill.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
Cheerio.
Take care.